Hello, everybody, and welcome to Monday Night Travel with Rick Steves Europe. My name is Gabe Gunning, and I have the privilege of serving as your host this evening as we stroll along the mosaic sidewalks of Lisbon and the serene beaches of the Algarve with an excellent guest. Now, without further ado, I am going to invite on our guest for the evening, the incomparable Cristina Duarte. Cristina, welcome back
Hello.
to Travel.
Hello, everybody. Hola.
Last year, you took us through northern Portugal, and today you're here to finish the job by taking us down to southern Portugal, but you also joined us last month for the Festival of Europe.
Okay.
What have you been up to in the few weeks since we've seen you last?
Well, as you said, I'm preparing myself for the upcoming season, but meanwhile, I did some vacation. So I went to the south of Spain and the south of Portugal, and it was good.
Ooh, where in southern Spain did you go?
Well, I started by Cordoba, Granada, Ronda, Seville, and then went to the Portuguese border to the Algarve, and so Tavira, Rio Formosa, Lagos, Silves, and then coming to Lisbon. Roughly 9 days.
Oh, well, it sounds like a fantastic 9 days to me.
Yes, they were.
I'm always jealous of you Europeans that can just travel between countries like we here in the US travel between states.
But it's good. It's yes. Think that is, well, from state to state, there are differences like, here from region to region. So, and actually the south of Spain and south of Portugal, we share the same Moorish heritage. So it was like a little bit of go deeper and a little bit into this Moorish traditional and cultural heritage.
And Cristina, speaking of heritage, I know that you live in Lisbon, but
yes,
are you from Lisbon originally? I mean, how long are your family's roots in Lisbon?
Okay, my parents aren't. They met in Lisbon back on the 60s, and so they decided to form a family here. So that's how me and my sister, my sister and I, we were born in Lisbon, live all my life in Lisbon. Meanwhile, my parents retired. They went back to their original native land, which is Coimbra, so in the center of the country. But of course, my life is here, and is here where I have my family and all my life. And so I can say that I'm from Lisbon, but I have my heart and my roots in the center of the country.
And Cristina, back in December, we had a show with Federico Garcia Barroso, and he told us that people in Madrid are called the cats of Spain. Do people from Lisbon have any good nicknames?
Well, we have alfacinha, which is alfacinha. Alface is a vegetable, is a lettuce, so a salad. And basically alfacinha is little lettuce. And it seems that it was the farmers that used to come to Lisbon to sell their fresh products every morning that saw that we really enjoyed our salads. So they say like, oh, they are little lettuce.
Well, hey, I guess it's good to have a stereotype for being healthy.
Yeah, alfacinha, yes.
Alfacinha. All right. Well, Cristina, I'm so excited to explore Lisbon with you. We're going to explore the city, and then after that, head south down to the Algarve. Before we get started on that journey, though, let's take a look at the map and see where it is we are going to be going. So here we go. All right. So last time you were here, we looked at northern Portugal, so Porto up there by the Douro River and the Douro River Valley, Coimbra in the center. And this time we are going to go further south, and we are going to explore Lisbon and then go down to Lagos and Salema and Cape Sagres. And up next here we have a map of Lisbon. And Cristina, can you tell us where do you live in the city of Lisbon?
All right, I live outside that map. It's not because I live far away from the center, is that map is specifically the historical center of the city. So the downtown area. So if you look to the map and onto the right-hand side, you have the hill of the castle and Alfama. So those are is the oldest hill of the city. So the medieval or Roman, Moorish, medieval part of the city with the labyrinthic streets. Then in the middle, there is another neighborhood with straight lines, parallels, perpendiculars, that is Baixa. Baixa means downtown, the lowest part, and Baixa is basically, well, the area, the department that was all rebuilt after the earthquake of 1755. And then to the left-hand side, we have two other neighborhoods. Chiado, that is in the hill, it's the commerce or then the business center. And on the top of that, everything is Bairro Alto and has the name says the Upper District. Upper District, that is from the 1500s, but is mostly well known because of the bars and the restaurants, so the nightlife. I live outside of this area, in the area that was built in the 1960s, because actually in the beginning of the 20th century, the city, with the development of transports and the transportation, the city got out of the waterfront and went to north and west and east of the city. In this case, up to north, inland, and towards the airport. It's not at the airport. It looks like, by saying that I live nearby the airport, it looks like I live very far away. It's that Lisbon airport is in town almost.
Okay. And so it's a nice quick commute for anybody flying into Lisbon.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes. It's like, for me, it's a half an hour metro or subway. It's very easy. It's very easy to reach the downtown area.
All right. Well, let's jump right in. We're going to start out with a little clip of Rick showing us around Lisbon. Here we go.
Lisbon was originally populated by Romans in ancient times, then by Moors from Africa in the Middle Ages. But the city's glory days were the 15th and 16th centuries, when explorers like Vasco da Gama opened up new trade routes to Asia, making Lisbon one of Europe's richest cities. Today, Lisbon is a city of about 600,000 on the yawning mouth of the Tejo River. With its iconic bridge and statue of Christ overlooking its huge port, it welcomes ships from around the globe and still feels like Europe's gateway to the world. With its characteristic hills and trolleys, Lisbon has a San Francisco vibe. Today, Lisbon is a ramshackle but charming mix of now and then. Trolleys rattle up and down its hills. Noble statues mark grand squares. Locals enjoy venerable cafes, and a once-neglected harbor front has been revitalized.
Cristina, Rick just described Lisbon like I often hear it described, which is that it can be a little bit more rough around the edges. Rick actually used the word ramshackle, but kind of that it's a bit less polished than maybe its neighbor Spain. And I think when people say that, they don't mean it as an insult. They in fact mean that there's a sort of charm in kind of it feels a little bit more down to earth. Do you think that that's an accurate and fair characterization?
Yes, I do think so. And I get the word ramshackle as a picturesque and a picturesque way of describing the city of Lisbon. And it is absolutely right, because it looks like an architectural chaos, and where each of a district and department is different from each other. And it's due to its history. I mean, how it developed the city, how it was destroyed with the earthquakes, reconstructed, what was the ideas of the reconstruction. And actually, what could be criticism is actually the charm of the city itself, because it's like you go through the different neighborhoods and you feel that you are living different cities in the same morning, because they are so different from each other. It is less sophisticated it looks less sophisticated than other cities. And I travel around a little bit to see that. But there is one main justification for that. Portugal was a poor country, and not only a poor country, but it was a country that was, and it is still, far away from everything. We are the most western country of continental Europe. So when you think that most of the history and art and culture and science were placed in the center of Europe and Mediterranean throughout so many centuries, and just when in the 1400s and 1500s, well, the trade passed to be more Atlantic, is when actually we had the chance of also going into this, well, sophistication, or towards this sophistication. We had now the commerce in our coast, and actually we were no longer the last place, the last resort. Right now we are the opening, and we are the door to Europe. So of course this is going to reflect the city. City was much more imponent than it is right now, but we had two earthquakes on our history in the 1500s, and especially in the 1800s, in the 1700s. And of course, what we see nowadays is a little bit of an assemble of reconstruction and remodeling.
All right, well, let's see. Let's take a closer look at the impact of that earthquake and how the city is combating it.
Lisbon's history is dominated by one cataclysmic event, an earthquake in 1755. It was so strong, they say candles flickered as far away as Ireland. 30,000 people died as 2/3 of the city was flattened. It was actually 3 disasters in rapid succession. After the quake, fires raged through the city. Then, a massive tsunami slammed into the harbor front. The scarred pillars of the Church of São Domingos evoke the horror of that day. It was All Saints' Day, and most of the population was in church. This is one of the few buildings from before 1755 that survive. The city was reconstructed under the energetic and eventually dictatorial leadership of its prime minister, the Marquês de Pombal. Lisbon's downtown is almost entirely post-1755. The Baixa, or lower town, sits between 2 hills. At the top, the Avenue of Liberty provides Lisbon with a proud Champs-Élysées-type spine. With wide sidewalks and plenty of trees, it feels and functions like a park. From there, a series of fine squares are in full bloom for our springtime visit. They lead through one of Europe's first planned city centers to the harbor and the vast harborfront square. Before the earthquake, this square was the site of a huge royal palace. Today, it's another wide-open public space. The grandiose arch stands as an Arch of Triumph. A statue of the Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama represents Lisbon's trade-fueled golden age. And a statue of the Marquês de Pombal recalls the devastated city's impressive recovery after the quake. Pombal rebuilt the city on a grid street plan, fast, cheap, and earthquake-proof.
Cristina, I'm curious, I know that these days in Seattle, a lot of buildings are built to be earthquake proof, but a few centuries ago, how were buildings built to withstand earthquakes?
Well, they were, especially this area, and especially after 1755, the earthquake of 1755, the Prime Minister, Marquis of Pombal, he decided to make this part of the city very sophisticated. So they're very sophisticated and cosmopolitan. He needed nice, imposing buildings, which were heavier. So first of all, he needed to establish the soil because it's a muddy soil over there. So he stuck pillars of pine trees onto the soil in order to make it more stable. And then finally, the buildings in stone and in brick, but they are heavy. And in order to make it lighter, the buildings, the walls inside of those buildings, they were made with stucco, but inside of the stucco, there is a frame of wood. And we call that the Pombaline cage, Gaiola Pombalina. And so this, having the walls like that inside, it make it lighter, but also more elastic in case of well, needing to balance a little bit.
Very interesting. All right, let's continue on our walk through Lisbon, confident that it is now more earthquake-proof at least.
Spartan and utilitarian architecture, named Pombaline after Pombal, feels almost military. That's because it is. The Baixa we see today was reconstructed by Pombal's military engineers, whose experience was in building garrison towns in Portuguese colonies overseas. The new Lisbon featured the architecture of conquest, economical and simple to assemble, with all the pieces easy to ship. The 18th century buildings you'd see in former Portuguese colonies like Mozambique and Brazil are interchangeable with the buildings here in Lisbon. The buildings are all uniform, with the same number of floors and standard facades. Inside, they were designed to survive the next earthquake. Outside, decoration was limited to wrought iron and tiles. Lisbon's churches were rebuilt, but had to fit Pombal's austere scheme. You hardly notice their facades. But stepping inside, Pombal's austerity is replaced with Baroque splendor. With its distinctive sidewalks, the downtown feels cohesive. The black and white cobbled design is an art form and uniquely Portuguese. To this day, patterns dating from the 19th century must be chosen from a book of traditional designs. Wherever you stroll, don't forget to look down.
Cristina, I know that Portugal and Lisbon especially is famous for its mosaic plazas and sidewalks. Can you tell us a bit about how this art form became so popular?
As an art form, it's very old and actually very simple. Because if we think all the way back to the Romans, they were the very first ones to pave the roads, actually to make it easier for the troops and the horses and the cars to not be stuck on the mud. So the easiest way was to stuck a stone into the mud, and like that paving. Well, imagine that from the road on the medieval time started to be also on the main commerce streets. You did not wanted your customers to get their boots dirty with mud and other things. And later on the Renaissance, when it was let's say the vogue of the big squares, the plaza, so people also wanted to gather in places that were paved. So this was more or less, how it was improving in the city. Well, in Lisbon was the same thing, but it passed to be all around, and especially after the 1800s and the reconstruction of the city, they decided to make it all over. White and black, in this case, is limestone and basalt, because it's two stones that are local stones. All over the country you find it, but probably with other stones, because you always used the local stone for a transportation matter. And then also in the 1800s, there was a possibility of choose among more than 20 different patterns what decoration you wanted to make. Nowadays, this is Portuguese heritage, and it is especially in downtown area. If there is a reconstruction, if there is something that because this needs this kind of sidewalks, they need lots of maintenance because they are independent stones. So if one gets out, all the others will get out. So as you can imagine, there are lots of maintenance associated to it. But when there are some restorations to do it, you have to do it again as it was, because it is, heritage, and you cannot change. On the newer districts of the city, it's not like that, although we still prefer and we still like to use the cobblestones. We call it calçada portuguesa, and we claim it as our way of paving the streets.
Well, they are certainly beautiful, and we are now going to go indoors for another iconic Portuguese art form.
The Bairro Alto was laid out in the 16th century to house shipworkers back when Lisbon was a maritime power, and its ships planted the Portuguese flag all over the globe. 5 centuries later, its character survives, as families who call the Bairro Alto home go back generations. A popular stop nearby is the grand old A Brasileira Cafe. This cafe retains the ambience it had back in the 1920s and 30s, when it caffeinated the literary soul of Lisbon, and it's still a good place for a coffee break. In the evening, the Bairro Alto buzzes with a thriving restaurant scene, and various restaurants serenade diners with the folk music of Lisbon's back streets.
Companheira dos meus gritos, rio de sonhos aflitos.
Traditionally, simple family-run restaurants entertained guests with fado music. Since the mid-1800s, fado has been Portugal's blues, mournful ballads about lost sailors, broken hearts, and bittersweet romance.
Cristina, oftentimes with some of these very traditional art forms that are regionally specific, I always wonder, is fado music still something that's really appreciated by the locals in Lisbon and supported by the locals, or has it become something that is more of a tourist activity?
Actually, it's the other way around. I think that there was a moment that it was more touristy, and right now we are, well, witnessing, a revivalism of fado. I never seen so many and beautiful and young voices and young singers. So I think that is a wonderful new attitude towards fado that was always related with the old people and the old generation. But right now, more and more, the younger generation appreciate it. We can say that it's a little bit touristy. Yes, if you are going to one of these places like restaurants, when you step in and you look around and you'll see mostly tourists that go to these restaurants. And why is that? Because we are local, we are Portuguese, and this going to these restaurants might be a little bit expensive for us, for our pockets. So what we do normally is that we eat at home, and then afterwards, so when all the tourists, they are going to bed, we step in to listen fado. So without having the meal, but just having the music. So it's more common that you see Portuguese in this kind of bars and restaurants of fado music just around after 10:30, 11 o'clock.
That's a great tip, that if you want to see fado with the locals,
yes,
you have to go late.
Later, yes.
Yeah. All right, let's continue.
It's impromptu, informal. Sometimes the singer's just taking a break from the kitchen. She's accompanied by a couple of musicians, one playing a 12-string Portuguese guitar. We're dining a little more upscale with just the right seat for this intimate music. These are songs of sadness, love, and hope. It's a distinctly Portuguese emotion called saudade, a kind of yearning or nostalgia.
Cristina, can you quickly tell us in your own words, what does saudade mean?
I'm not going to use my words. I'm going to use a friend of mine words. And she says that is the presence of the absence. And I think that it's actually this thing, which is the presence of the absence, which is, it's not there, but is there in your mind. It's not there physically, but is there in your mind, in your thoughts. So that's why this longing, this nostalgia.
It's a beautiful sentiment, and I love these words in other languages that can't be completely translated. It's just part of the culture. Let's take a little peek now at some of the back streets of Lisbon and the quirky culture that we can find there.
Mm-hmm.
Todo meu pranto, uma canção de amor dentro do peito.
I'm Rick Steves, and we're in the oldest part of Lisbon, and I'm with my guide, Alex. Hi, Alex.
Hello.
And tell us about where are we in Lisbon right now?
So this is the castle area, and this is one of the oldest parts of Lisbon.
Really up on top of the Alfama, next to the castle?
All the castle area and the Alfama area are the oldest here in Lisbon. They've kind of survived to the earthquake.
Now explain this. This is an interesting feature.
Yes, this is something that is very typical here. See, in every house, the little houses, you have a bottle, a wine bottle, and basically you just put this like this, and you dry your clothes here.
So you can dry your clothes.
Yes, and all of them, you can see all of the doors have
Here's another one.
little wine bottles.
Can you do this one here, please?
Yes, of course. Just like this.
And then you hang your clothes out to dry.
Yes, and it just dries the clothes.
So that one would, normally that would go out a little bit more, but they have
Yes,
the,
yes.
they have this.
Oh yeah.
I like that.
Yeah,
Little
it's a-
delights
it's
hiding
very
in the
typical
back
here in
streets
this
of Lisbon.
neighborhood. Yeah.
Christina, I love some of those little cultural quirks that you see, especially in the back streets of Europe. Are there any other fun quirks in Lisbon that you particularly love?
Yes, also in this neighborhood of Alfama, you find many times like a string, a rope from a window to the door, to the main entrance of the building. And that is because, well, when you ring the doorbell and that makes the noise, but the person comes to the window, see who's there. But of course that she does not want to come down the stairs and open the door. So she pulls the rope, and it is amazing. I think that is genius.
Oh, some of my favorite inventions are the ones
Yes.
that you can tell somebody worked really hard one time so that they could be lazy a lot more times.
Exactly.
All right, well, we are going to continue on, and we are going to take a little food tour of Lisbon, which I'm
Okay.
particularly excited about. So let's enjoy some Lisbon treats.
Plenty of character and color is packed into Lisbon, and much of it is edible. To be sure we get the most out of our visit, I'm joined by my friend and fellow tour guide, Cristina Duarte.
This is my favorite spot in town, the grocery store where you find cod.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is amazing.
Did you see this fish? This is cod, bacalhau. It's in our national dish.
So your favorite place in town, cod. You must like cod.
Yes, I like a lot. All the Portuguese do. So this is salted, as you see, and is dry. And we can eat it like so many different ways. You can find it in any restaurant in town.
So in the old days, they could preserve it,
In salt and then dry it.
and then how do you prepare it?
Well, you have to soak it for 24 hours to 48 hours before in water and changing the water, and then you just cook it as a normal fish.
So if I go to a restaurant, what is the word I look for?
Bacalhau,
And I'll find it on menus?
for sure.
So, Christina, I'm curious. It's always fun to see you on the TV show. You're just as lovely on film as you are live.
Oh,
And I'm just curious, why cod? Why did cod become so popular? Is it just more bountiful than other fish in the area? Does it just taste better? What is it about cod?
I think that it is. It was a big fish, and it was as we can eat 100% almost of it. No, zero waste. It could arrive to everybody's pocket, economical situation. You have the tenderloins that were expensive, but then you have other areas of the fish that were less noble and that could be shredded and turned into different other dishes. So the incredible thing is that the cod is not caught in or fished in Portuguese waters. So we needed to go all the way to the North Atlantic cold waters of Scandinavia or Canada, Atlantic Canada, to fish this kind of big fish. And so you understand that it could not be eaten fresh. It was always put it on the salt and then coming to Portugal. And that's why desalted before you cook it. But it was also a way of arriving fish to areas that were remote from the coast. You see, if you live in a mountain and you are Catholic and you have to eat every Friday and you have to eat fish the 40 days of Lent and you don't have fish, what you do? I mean, you can eat vegetables, and we actually used to fry vegetables. So tempura as a Portuguese heritage. We took this and we call it little fish from the garden. But the most important thing is that to have this, salted cure fish that you could eat, doesn't matter where. So I think that these were the qualities of that make codfish so popular. So price, because of the different varieties of the parts of the fish, and the possibility of preserving it.
That's amazing to me. I didn't realize that cod wasn't produced near Portugal, that they had to get it from other places. It's amazing that it became so popular despite having to get it from further afield waters, or maybe a field can't be used in the context of water.
It was a very important capture, and there were campaigns, the codfish campaigns, where entire villages of the north of Portugal were getting onto this fishery for 8-9 months, because they only returned when the boat was full. And this was just out of a necessity, of a need, because there were no other possibilities. We have a very big coast, it's the Atlantic coast, but we don't have big fish passing in the Portuguese coast. And most of the winter time, the sea is so rough that many times fishermen cannot go out in the sea.
Interesting. All right. Well, good to learn about cod. That's a lot that I did not know before. And let's see what other treats Lisbon has in store for us.
This is one of the 365 ways of cooking cod that I told you.
So what do we have in this?
In this, as you can see, it is codfish, potato, onion, and parsley. And then it's all deep fried. It's wonderful. Bolinho de bacalhau. Yep. This is just the perfect snack, either in the morning or in the afternoon.
It's like fast food in Portugal.
Fast food in Portugal.
Christina's favorite eating experiences take us all over town, so we're traveling by trolley. Many of these have been clattering through town since the 1920s, somehow safely weaving within inches of parked cars as they climb Lisbon's many hills. Lisbon's traditional market hall is our next stop, and a joy to explore. Locals still shop here for the freshest ingredients. But as is the case all over Europe, modern buying habits are forcing these old-time markets to evolve. In order for the farmer stalls to survive, markets are adding high-energy food courts. Today, much of this market features branches of restaurants run by local celebrity chefs. It's a youthful and trendy scene where you can enjoy a world of enticing dishes at great prices. And for us, it's the ideal lunch spot, mixing quality food, expedience, and fun shared tables.
So Cristina, I know that the last time you were on, we talked, of course, about port wine, which is a popular Portuguese export. But what are some other main food products that Portugal produces and exports?
Do you see what is this? No?
What?
It's fish can.
Oh,
Fish can. So this is sardines in olive oil and lemon, and this is sardines in tomato. But fish cans, you'll find it, all different kind of fish, not only sardines, but mackerel, octopus, cod. And actually, we were very important, and we still are, about fish cans and with different sauces. It's just the perfect snack or the perfect thing to have at home, then to prepare like a meal or a starter or even an appetizer when you have somebody coming over without notice and previous notice. So it's just one of the things that we have more as concerning food exportation.
There we go. Pan fish it is. Let's continue on.
Mhm.
The market stands at the base of another steep Lisbon hill. It's too steep for a trolley, so we're hopping a funicular. The Elevator da Bica funicular climbs through a rough and tumble neighborhood where more tasty bites of Lisbon await. Small, creative wine bars inject an inviting modernity into the old quarter. Along with a warm welcome, you're sure to gain an appreciation of the local taste treats. No visit to Lisbon is complete without sipping the favorite national drink, port wine.
Well, cod is the national food, but port is the national drink.
I like that. And our server has complemented this nice tawny port with the right meats and cheeses. Throughout Europe, places like this know how to combine traditional food and wine with a contemporary setting.
Cristina, Rick said that you were drinking a tawny port in that clip. I'm not much of a wine connoisseur, so what does tawny mean? I hear that term a lot, but I'm never quite sure.
Tawny is a wine that was in contact with wood. So on the process of aging the wine, you have tawnies and you have rubies. And the difference between them is the same wine, is the same process, the same grapes. So what is the difference? Well, one, the tawny, it's aged in smaller barrels of wood. So the contact that the wine has with the wood gives it to the wine a more brownish color and a more woody flavor. And in opposition to tawny, you have the ruby wines, which don't have almost any contact with the wood. So they keep their lively reds and more taste of the wine and the grapes.
I see. Got it. So a tawny and a ruby.
And a ruby.
Good knowledge for the next time I'm in Portugal.
Yes.
And let's finish up with some dessert.
Oh.
We're just a short trolley connection from the dessert course of our food crawl. To save money, we're using the local transit pass. You zap in and zap out. By the way, throughout Europe, pickpockets are hard at work on the buses and trolleys most popular and crowded with tourists. So enjoy the ride, but keep an eye on your belongings. Next stop, custard pies. This bakery is popular for their pastéis de Belém. You'll find these treats all over Portugal, and they originated right here. Behind the busy cafe scene, a sweet sweatshop cranks out thousands of these tasty delights every day. They tried mechanizing the process, but it just wasn't the same. Each one is still carefully handmade. Why are these so special? It's a secret, proudly kept since 1837. Stopping here is a ritual for me with every visit to Lisbon.
Cristina, that looks amazing. It makes me hungry.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if, I know that you have some treats to share with us this evening. Can you share with us what you're going to be snacking on tonight?
All right, everybody, after that, probably everybody is waiting for the same custard pie, but actually I have something different, because as the program today and the show today is about Lisbon and the Algarve. So I thought that it was a good moment to make this homage to the sweets in the Algarve. They are based in almonds and fig, almonds, or carob, because they are the main trees that you find in the Algarve landscape. And they are absolutely beautiful, not only delicious, but beautiful. Let me show you.
Oh, wow. Looks like a fruit platter.
Yes, yes, yes. You see, they have the forms of different fruits. Well, all of those that have the different fruits, they are actually, you have to help me with this word that I never get it. Marzipan?
Marzipan.
Marzipan. So it's marzipan inside, and then they take the shape of the fruits. The only one is not marzipan is this one, which is with fig, chocolate, and carob tree pulp.
Chocolate.
And I have another one that looks also very weird. It looks like a bowl of chocolate, but it's again the same thing. It's like marzipan, fig tree pulp, and see, I just opened it. to you to see.
Oh, just fig
And
and
is
chocolate.
yeah, yes,
Looks
totally
very
vegan. Okay,
decadent.
totally vegan.
Oh, wow. Vegan. Well, we oftentimes have people in the Q&A asking about good
Well,
vegan and
totally
vegetarian
those
options.
because
So,
they are all almond, fig, and carob pulp. So you see, and they have these beautiful things. And I think that it was today, well, not for you, but for us is already Valentine's Day. So why not to have a different sweet? And sometimes they have it also with the shapes of hearts and strawberries. It's really nice. And with this, I have a drink that is typical of Lisbon, okay, which is ginginha.
ginginha. I had ginginha the first time I
Yes.
was in Lisbon. Oh, I love it.
And ginginha, I'm going to pour it into a chocolate cup. You see.
And can you tell us what ginginha is, Cristina?
Ginginha is a sour cherry liqueur. So sour cherry, cherry, yeah. The sour cherry, it's not very sweet. So that's why for making this liquor, you have to have the fruit, then you add sugar, and then you, of course, you add some brandy because you want to keep the sugars and raise the alcohol content. So has a alcohol content is like every fruit liquor between 18 and 20%. And you can see it, well, in many of the little bars in the city of Lisbon, because the trees, they grow in the northwest of the city. So not the city, but in the northwest region of the city of Lisbon. The chocolate cup is something more modern, but actually it goes together. It's a good marriage between the sweet of the liquor and the chocolate cup. So you drink it, zipping it, not as a shot, zipping it, and then you eat the cup. They should do all kind of cutlery with that. So like that, I did not have to wash the dishes.
Well, I wish that I had a chocolate cup filled with ginginha. So I'll just wish you cheers with my water bottle.
Oh, sad.
I need to keep my wits about me for these shows, Cristina.
Oh my goodness, it's sad.
But thank you so much for sharing that with us. And Cristina, speaking of Valentine's Day, you had a little bit of a romantic story that you wanted to share that's related to the almonds down in the Algarve.
Yes, I think that is, well, my homage to Valentine's and the love day. So in the Algarve, in January, everything, they are, as I told you, there are almond trees all over, and there is a reason for that. Well, the legend says that back to the 8th to the 12th century, when the Moorish were there in this area, there was a Moorish prince that was married with a North European princess. They loved each other, so it was a wedding of love. But every winter, she was very, very sad. And she was sad because she was homesick, not of the home, but because of the snow. And how can you do to snow in the Algarve? I mean, even with the climate changes, you cannot, because it's too much to south. So he had this idea of planting almond trees all over the Algarve. So like that, in January, when the cherry trees, they bloom, she could open the window and see everything white, as if it was snowing. And I think it's so lovely.
I love that story.
There are no more men like that.
Well, we are going to get down to the Algarve soon, but before we do, we're going to take one more stop in Lisbon. We're going to stop by the Belém district.
Okay.
So let's go there now.
Like industrial harbor fronts all across Europe, Lisbon's has recently been transformed into a people-friendly waterfront promenade. And from here, a trolley takes us farther along the waterfront to the district of Belém.
Belém survived the big earthquake of 1755. Because of that, great buildings from Lisbon's pre-earthquake glory days, like the Belém Tower, still stand.
Back then, this tower protected Lisbon's harbor. Today, it symbolizes the voyages that made Portugal so powerful 5 centuries ago. This was the last sight sailors saw as they headed out into the unknown, and the first they saw when they returned, bearing gold and spices. The nearby monument to the discoveries, built in 1960 on the 500th anniversary of Henry the Navigator's death, is shaped like the ship that made it all possible, the Caravel. It celebrates how exploring the world was a team effort. Leading the charge is Prince Henry the Navigator, holding a model of his ship and a chart, followed by kneeling knights and soldiers who Christianized foreign lands with the sword. Vasco da Gama stands tall, eyes on the horizon and hand on his weapon. Magellan holds a circle representing the Earth his ship famously circumnavigated. Across the way is a naval museum which shows how this little country once built a mighty empire. Exhibits show the technology that Portugal used to become a leader in exploration and trade in the 15th and 16th centuries. The Caravel, the ultimate ship for exploring and trading, was Portugal's secret to success. It was fast, small, and light, with sails that could pivot quickly. Nimble and able to sail into the wind, it was ideal for sailing along coastlines. The Portuguese became experts at navigating by the stars. With ingenious tools like these, they could now sail away from the coast. Equipped with this technology and his caravel, Vasco da Gama sailed around Africa to India. Portugal's mastery of the sea had a huge impact. Throughout the Middle Ages, Italy dominated European trade with the East. But within 10 years of Vasco da Gama's voyage around Africa to India, Italy's trade plummeted, and the seafaring nations on the Atlantic coast, England, Holland, Spain, and Portugal, emerged as Europe's economic powerhouses. Next to the museum is the Hieronymus Monastery with Lisbon's most impressive church. King Manuel ruled during Portugal's Age of Discovery, around the year 1500. He built this church and monastery as a thanks to God for the trade and wealth that resulted. Manuel financed the construction by taxing spices brought back from Asia. He built all of this on the site of a humble chapel where seafarers prayed before leaving on their frightening voyages. The style of Manuel's church? Manueline.
Cristina, Rick describes these voyages as frightening. Can you give us a picture of what were these voyages like? How long were they? How dangerous were they? Was it fairly common that a sailor wouldn't come home?
Imagine that, well, we set sails for what we call the discoveries period, and already in the 1400s. So imagine, I mean, the 1415 is the date that we normally say has the beginning. And imagine with the knowledge that they had at the time, which was none, and also surrounded by superstition and fears about the unknown that was around the world and the sea. Imagine how you jump into a boat and you go to nowhere where you don't know where to go. I mean, you just go. So it was frightening. It was frightening and it was dangerous because there was not knowledge about the seas, the winds, the rotation of the earth, the tides. So everything was very dangerous, and probably just 1/3 of the number of the people going on these expeditions were successful returning home. So you see, it was a very risky expedition, but it was everything or nothing, because it was a way of trying to set up a new life. It was also long. When finally Vasco da Gama arrives to India in 1498, and then it was easier to go, but still they had from Lisbon to Goa in India was 11 months in the sea just to arrive. And then imagine from Lisbon to Japan, because we were the first Europeans to arrive to Nagasaki, it was actually 2 years. So imagine a boat that was doing Lisbon to Goa and then to stopping in China and going to Nagasaki and return. It was almost 5 years. So, I mean, round trip, I'm saying, with the time waiting, I mean, in each one of these places to just change the merchandises.
Yeah, I'm not going to be complaining about a long flight again.
No.
And clearly, it did bring a lot of riches to Portugal, including this monastery here. Let's take a closer look at the architecture.
This style, while medieval, is on the cusp of the Renaissance. Unlike earlier medieval churches, the interior is open and airy. Palm tree-like columns are slender rather than massive. This uniquely Portuguese style reflects the wealth of the times and the many cultural influences of that age. Manual and decoration is both ornate and symbolic, featuring motifs from the sea. Monsters evoke the mystery of undiscovered lands. A totem pole of indigenous faces celebrates Portuguese conquests. And the ceiling, a Boy Scout handbook of knots, trumpets Portugal's nautical know-how. This is Vasco da Gama's tomb. In 1497, he spent an evening praying here for a safe voyage. The next morning, he set sail with 4 state-of-the-art caravels like this and 150 men. These lacy Manueline cloisters, my favorite in all of Europe, are the architectural highlight of Belém. The sheer size of this monastic complex is a testament to the religious zeal that, along with money, propelled the Age of Discovery. To mix in a little fun in the sun with our history, we're driving 3 hours south to the rugged southwestern tip of Portugal, Cape Sagres. This was as close as you could get to the edge of our flat Earth in the days before Columbus. A lighthouse marks what was referred to even in ancient times as the end of the world. Today, salt-of-the-earth merchants sell seaworthy sweaters. Fishermen cast their lines off the dizzying cliffs. And tourists go for that end-of-Europe photo. 5 centuries ago, Prince Henry the Navigator, determined to broaden Europe's horizons and spread Catholicism, established his sailing school right here. This was Henry's mission control, from where he sent sailors ever further into the unknown. And here, he debriefed shipwrecked and frustrated explorers as they washed ashore.
Little remains of Henry's original school beyond this evocative stone circle. Nobody really knows its function. Some say it was a tool for celestial navigation. Others figure it was a wind compass with a flag in the middle blowing in the direction of the wind. Whatever the case, sailors came here to learn everything they needed to know for world exploration. Shipbuilding, map-making, navigation, even languages and salesmanship for mingling with natives in newly discovered lands.
Today, Cape Sagres marks the western tip of the Algarve. Portugal's south coast was once known as Europe's last undiscovered tourist frontier. But now it's well discovered, the darling of tour brochures, and much like Spain's Costa del Sol, paved, packed, and pretty developed.
Cristina, I'm curious. I sometimes, because Portugal is a relatively small country, I forget what an outsized impact it had in seafaring and world exploration with Vasco da Gama and Magellan. And I'm just curious if today's Portuguese, do you feel like the Portuguese still have a strong connection with the sea and the water? Do a lot of people still know how to do boating, or has modern life kind of separated Portuguese people from those natural elements around them?
Modern life did not separate us. It was economic life that separated us from the sea. I mean, modern life, we still like the sea. We love to live nearby. We love to go to the beach. We love to walk along the beach. So we love those things. But this is one thing that costs nothing. With the sailing thing, it's totally another issue, which is keeping a boat is expensive. So although we feel this connection with the sea, we tend to be more, more an observer than actually a person into the boat maneuvering. Mhm.
That is very fair.
Yes.
Well, we are going to continue to zip along the coast to the home base for many people when they're in the Algarve, the city of Lagos.
Lagos, with a jet ski marina and a beach party old town, is as enjoyable as a big city resort can be. The major town on this stretch of coast, Lagos hides some history. It was the capital of the Algarve in the 13th and 14th centuries. The first great Portuguese maritime expeditions embarked from here. The old town, defined by its medieval wall, is a jumble of pedestrian streets, funky craft shops, seafood restaurants, and sunburned tourists. The beaches, with the exotic rock formations of postcard fame, are dramatic.
Cristina, do you feel that Lagos, for many people visiting the Algarve, is it a place that you would recommend as a home base?
I think so. It's one of my favorite cities in the Algarve. It can, because it has everything that I appreciate when I'm on holidays. I mean, it has restaurants, it has bars, it has life, it has wonderful beaches on the walking distance, but there is also things to do in a half-hour drive. So it's actually a good home base for visiting all the rest of the area of the Algarve.
Well, Cristina, I know that you were just recently visiting the Algarve, and while you were there, you took just a couple little videos for us. These clips that we're looking at are a few years old now, so you took a couple videos to give us a fresh taste of the Algarve, and I'd love to watch those now. If you could tell us what we're seeing.
We are seeing the marina, the same marina that we was showing the Rick Steves before, but right now we can see that they were years apart and it is much more developed. You have boats like yachts, so pleasant boats, but you also have fishermen boats, and also it's from here, from most of the tour excursions, they departure, and there are lots of tour excursions, boat tour excursions. Behind those palm trees, you can see that there is some restaurants, some bars, and there is a hotels also. So it's a very pleasant area to just have a walk in the evening or in the daytime. And from here we see Ponta da Piedade, and you just see a boat coming into that kind of arch, and it is the access to the sea caves. Some people might like to see the sea caves and access to this little beach, but they are afraid of the boat. So in that case, well, walking from Lagos to here, to Ponta da Piedade, it will take a little bit, but it's possible. And they just go all down those stairs. You see that all those stairs down, all the way down to the little beach, but it's an incredible paradise with almost nobody. And it's beautiful. It was a little bit windy, so you can hear it.
That is lovely. It does look like a paradise. And now we're going to finish on at Rick's favorite paradise in the Algarve, and that is Salema.
While Lagos is pretty touristy, one bit of old Algarve magic still glitters quietly in the sun: Salema. This simple fishing village has just enough B&Bs and restaurants, a classic beach, and endless sun. Salema has a split personality. The whitewashed old town is for locals. The other half was built for tourists. Locals and tourists pursue a policy of peaceful coexistence. Salema is still a fishing village. Weather-worn fishermen, oblivious to the tourists, go about their work, while old-timers remember the days when life was only fish and hunger. The pottery jars stacked everywhere are octopus traps. They get shore leave only for a periodic barnacle scraping. Otherwise, they're busy at sea, catching octopi. Local fisherman Luigi is taking us out to check the pots. They're strung along the seabed just offshore, a technique that's changed little since ancient times. The octopus, thinking these pots would make a cozy place to set an ambush, climbs in and gets ambushed himself. When the fisherman hoists him in, he hangs on, unaware he's made his final mistake. The octopus is indelicately maced out of his refuge, ends up in the village market, and who knows, perhaps on my dinner plate tonight. These days, locals hook more tourists than fish. They rent cheap and characteristic rooms to travelers. For a little more comfort and convenience, you can stay at Pension Mare. The breakfast is a buffet and comes with a view. Guests enjoy internet access and plenty of sightseeing tips. And the living room is mostly under the sun. For seafood lovers, the Algarve is as good as it gets. Salema's handful of surfside restaurants have a knack for friendly service, getting whitefish just right, and complementing that with plenty of vegetables. After a great lunch, the beach beckons. And after so much history and art, Salema is refreshing for its lack of turnstiles. The major activity is no activity, stretched out on the sand. While locals grab the shade, tourists see how slow they can get their pulse under the Algarve sun.
Cristina, I mean, this, as evidenced by the laptop in that clip, this clip is almost a couple decades old at this point.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, has Salema kind of retained that small fishing village charm, or has it become more developed?
No, it became more developed. And right now there are lots of new buildings all over. And most of these buildings are not hotels. They are actually secondary homes for foreigners, but especially to Portuguese people. So the Algarve is not just something for foreigner people, it's also for Portuguese people. And so if you want to retain this attachment to the sea and to the local traditions, I rather recommend to go off season. I mean, off season is of the summer season when it is crowded. Because if you go in, you just avoid Easter, or right now Mardi Gras, I mean Carnival, Easter, or July and August. You have a wonderful time in the Algarve, and you can actually have this idea that you have the beach and the cities just for yourself.
And Cristina, if you do want to go to some smaller beach towns like this, are a lot of them accessible by public transportation, or should people wanting to go to these beach towns plan to rent a car?
It's better, definitely, all over the country. It's not only for Algarve, but all over the country. If you are traveling outside of the big cities like Lisbon, Coimbra, or Porto, so outside of the big cities, the transportation net, access, it's not that good. So it's definitely a good idea to rent a car.
All right. Well, I love this. We're going to finish with one more video of Rick on the beach in Salema. And I love this because the shot that this TV clip ends on is almost the exact shot that Rick's iPhone video opens on. So let's finish on the beaches of Salema with Rick.
Pulse under the Algarve sun.
Can you imagine a beach, just a sleepy beach with fresh seafood in the bar overlooking the umbrellas and a few families making sandcastles as the sun goes down? Well, that's the Algarve, and I've been here for a couple of days now, and it is so clear to me that if you want the most beautiful sand and the freshest seafood, without all the crowds and intensity and concrete, the Algarve really beats the Costa del Sol. And I like the Algarve because, well, there's an evocative history here. I mean, there's Land's End of Europe right there, the southwest tip. That's the last piece of land Vasco da Gama and Magellan and those guys, maybe even Columbus, saw before getting out there and kicking off the Age of Discovery 500 or 600 years ago. Now today, you can go to the Algarve and hang out, and I've been here for a couple of days and I have not seen an American. It's a lazy, beautiful atmosphere, end of May, early June, not too hot, not too crowded. You've got a chance Well, I'm wearing my Keep On Traveling t-shirt because I feel pretty strongly that it's important that we keep on traveling. I also feel pretty strongly that when we make a smart itinerary, we balance it with big, exciting cities and beautiful, small-town natural wonders. The beach, the mountains, the valleys. And when you think about it, Lisbon is just 3 hours that way. And Seville is just 3 hours that way. And in the middle, we got our vacation from our vacation on the beach. This is the quintessence of a back door. Salema on the Algarve in the south coast of Portugal. Happy travels and keep on traveling.
So, Christina, one theme that kind of came up throughout the presentation is this idea that Portugal has had a huge tourism boom. You know, some countries in Europe like Italy and France have had a lot of tourists for a long time, but just in the past decade, Portugal has become very trendy. And I'm just curious, from your perspective as a Portuguese person, how do you feel like Portugal has managed that change? What good things has it brought to the country? And do you feel like the country has done a good job of kind of retaining its character and its essence despite having more tourists and more travelers?
It is an issue of discussion. I mean, we like all the countries that suffered a fast growing on tourism. Actually, there were pros and cons. We need tourism. It's still one of the three activities of incoming to Portugal. So we absolutely need tourism, and you are mostly welcome in Portugal. But of course, that sometimes it's not only welcoming people. With the boom of tourism, especially in the big cities, the city they didn't, but they had to grow also the offer for the new structure. And and I'm talking, for instance, for public transportation. All of a sudden, instead of 20 people, you have 50 people for the trolley. Of course, right now, nobody can ride a trolley anymore because it is the lines are long and you try other alternatives. As a tourist, you think that you still have to do a must-off on your bucket list. So there are these pros and cons that I still try to figure it out. But we absolutely need tourists, and it is mostly welcome to our country. But don't try to not come all at the same time and with always with the same months. So you know what? Everybody chooses May and September because they are all afraid of the low temperature or afraid of the high temperatures. You know what? There are thousands of people exactly thinking like us, which is we end up traveling, all of us, in May and in September. And just spread out to have a better sense of the countries. Well, try to spread out a little bit more and to other months that that are not that crowded and not that touristy. Mm-hmm.
Yes, traveling on the shoulder season. It's
yes.
something that Rick has promoted for a long time, and not just traveling to the shoulder season, but also traveling to second cities, or traveling to go and visit a place like Coimbra. While we love Lisbon and loved chatting about it tonight, there are a lot of great cities in Portugal that aren't just the #1 blockbuster place.
Yes.
We are going to get to questions in just a moment, Cristina. But before we do, we are going to have a word from our sponsor. And today that word from our sponsor is actually going to come from one of the editor of the newest edition of our Portugal guidebook, which just came out last month. It is hot off the presses. It is new on bookshelves. And I would like to have our editor, Teresa Nemeth, present that to you now.
I'm Teresa Nemeth, and I'm a guidebook editor at Rick Steves Europe. This is the new edition of our Portugal guidebook. Here we have the beach town of Lagos on the cover. I was the head editor for this particular book, which means I was in charge of making sure all the updates from our on-the-ground researcher were incorporated consistently throughout the chapters and on all the maps. So, for example, if you want to visit the fabulous Pena Palace in the town of Sintra near Lisbon, we don't want you to be surprised by the fact that you can't drive up the hill to the palace anymore. We want you to know the best way to approach the town, where to park, how to catch the shuttle, and we wanted to show it really clearly on this color map here in the back. I really like the challenge of presenting all of the new material as clearly as possible for readers, and while I'm doing it, I kind of feel like I'm there, so it's fun. So enjoy Portugal, enjoy the book, and happy travels.
All right. I love being able to hear about these products from the people that get to work on them, just like hearing about the tours from you, Cristina, somebody that works on those. And Cristina, we're going to dive into people's questions now. The first question comes from Sue, and Sue's wondering, I know that you were just down in the Algarve. What are some other towns and cities in the Algarve that you recommend visiting beyond Lagos and Salema?
Okay, if you are home based in Lagos, you can do day trips to Sagres and to St. Vincent Cape, to Silves, which is a Moorish heritage, beautiful castle, and Monchique, the water spreads of Monchique. So there are lots of things to do around Lagos. Faro is the capital of the Algarve, so right in the middle. So also various day trips on that area, but a little bit more far away from everything. And I'm talking to the east part. So the closer part to Spain is Tavira, which is my second favorite place in the Algarve. It's a town with Roman roots, with a Moorish heritage. There's lots of nice churches to visit, but also there is lots of good food. So it's one of the places that I like that. Don't think that the Algarve is huge. It is a region. It's not a city, but it's kind of easy to, in a couple of hours, to be from edge to edge. So you can actually, in one day, doing, well, a couple of stops along the way. That's why I was saying it's fundamental to rent a car.
And Cristina, you mentioned the Roman heritage. Martin and Gina were wondering, are there any Roman ruins in southern Portugal? I don't usually think of Portugal when I think of Roman ruins, but I suppose they did pass through.
They are not, well, the biggest city with Roman ruins is Évora, but that is in the Alentejo, which actually can be a nice stop going to the Algarve instead of going straight on, while making an incursion and probably, well, spend the night in Évora. It is a beautiful town, and there is beautiful ruins, Roman ruins. And in the Algarve, there are some bridges. They are mainly some bridges, and some towns have a little bit of mosaics and, well, the structure of castles.
Another question, you were talking about transportation, and I know that it can actually be kind of difficult sometimes to navigate between Spain and Portugal. Like, for example, a lot of people think that must just be a lot of direct trains between Lisbon and Madrid, and there aren't. Why is that, and how do you recommend that people get between the two countries?
Car or bus, or actually flying, depending on the distances. For instance, between Lisbon and Madrid, well, it takes, although they are every time, it's like the new airport in Lisbon, every year we talk about the speed train between Lisbon and Madrid, but still we don't have it, and we have a very slow train that takes almost 10 hours to arrive. So my advice between Lisbon and Madrid, take the plane. And it is 1 hour, 15 minutes. So it's just perfect. And if you want to, for instance, if you are in the southern part, So, or you go to the southern part, the best is the car. And if you don't want to rent a car, if you don't have it, there are lots of buses that make the connection between Seville and Lisbon, for instance, and will take about 5 hours plus 1 hour. Well, actually 5 to 6, but when you has Portugal and Spain have 1 hour difference, so you can lose 1 hour or actually gain an hour depending on the direction.
Oh, I always forget that they have different time zones.
Yeah. Yes.
Still speaking of the Algarve, Cristina, Sue is wondering, it's a place of such natural beauty. Are there does Portugal have national parks down in the Algarve that you would recommend?
Not really national parks like the ones that I'm thinking about here as the United States, but we have reserves, natural reserves. And one of the most beautiful ones is what we call Ria Formosa. Ria is like river, and Formosa is like beautiful, elegant. And it is situated more or less in the middle of the Algarve. And it is an area created like a lagoon that was created by an ensemble of islands that create a barrier in relationship to the waterfront. So from the waves. So when it is high tide in the ocean, there is one way that the ocean gets and overfloods that lagoon. And then it is low tide. Well, that lagoon can be walkable to the waterfront. And it's beautiful. It's not very well discovered because exactly of accessibility, we make it like that. And it is good like that. Otherwise, it was going to be, on the nature point of view, it's going to be ruined by humans. I'm not saying tourists, but by humans. But I know that there are more and more companies that do some trekking, some hiking in that area, and also bicycle tours.
Headed back up to Lisbon, Cristina. We have one question from, let's see, who was it? From David. And David would like to know, which neighborhood in Lisbon do you most recommend that people stay in when they visit, and why?
I always recommend Baixa and Chiado. And why is that? You will not find many locals living over there because we simply cannot afford to live in the city center anymore. Actually, not even in the neighborhood, in the surroundings right now. But in Baixa and Chiado, you have a construction. The buildings are in a construction. They are the construction after the earthquakes. So you can find either hotels or short rental apartments that are very comfortable, and you are in such a good place to catch all kind of transportation or walk to everywhere. So that are my favorite zones. Alfama, probably when you look for, prices of the houses and renting apartments like that, you probably will find in Alfama, for instance, that is the oldest district of the town. You will find very nice apartments. Prices at least. But don't forget that Alfama, it's most of the houses over there, they are from the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s. So they are tiny little apartments. You see, the photo is fantastic, but when you arrive, you have to climb like four flights of stairs in a tiny little narrow stairs. So that's why Baixa and Chiado are my favorite ones.
So many people ask if, if their hotel has a gym, and if you have that many stairs, then you don't need a gym.
No.
Work out going up and down.
No, especially with the cobblestones and the hills. Let me tell you that after 3 hours, all your muscles are aching. So you don't need a gym.
All right, Cristina, well, we have time for one last question, and that
Mhm.
question comes from Gabe in Seattle. And Gabe,
Yes.
would like to know, you said that you are you're going to be beginning your 2023 tour season soon. And I want to know, what are you most excited about for your upcoming tour season?
See people again. Yes.
Seeing just
I like
any old people, or seeing specific vendors?
No. Just like the fuzz and the adrenaline
The
again.
energy.
The energy, the tour members, and I like that. So I miss that. After a while, I mean, I like my comfort. I need to restore my energy, but after a while, I start missing this adrenaline.
Well, we hope that you got a nice hit of adrenaline by speaking with all of us tonight.
Yes.
We're certainly very grateful for you taking the time to join us, Cristina, for showing us around your hometown of Lisbon, for bringing us under the sun down in the Algarve. And we wish you an excellent tour season in Portugal.
Obrigada.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. As promised, thus concludes our time looking at Portugal, but we did want to, last week, we asked you to share your favorite Monday night travel memories over the past 100 episodes. And at this point, I would like to invite in my colleague, Ben Green, from behind the scenes. And I would also like to invite Lisa Friend, who has taken time out of her night off from Monday Night Travel to join us. Julianne is busy tonight, but Lisa's here, and we thought that each one of us would just share a few of our favorite memories that people shared last week to finish off tonight's show and to celebrate once more 100 incredible shows with all of you. So Lisa, would you like to kick us off?
I would love to, Gabe. Thank you for asking. Congratulations to you, Gabe, and to you, Ben, and in absentia, Julianne. We've done 100 episodes, and we're so happy and proud. So we asked you for the memories, as Gabe mentioned, and so I have one from Jenny. She says, I am blessed to have been joining in since the very first episode. It is easy to forget now what it was like during the lockdown. MNT was a gift, a wonderful gift during these very hard times. Every week, my husband and adult son knew that Monday night was my date night with Rick, and that's still what I call it today. Each Monday was an escape to learn, to see new things with my virtual friends, Gabe and Julianne, Lisa and Ben. Thank you, Jenny.
Oh, thank you, Jenny. My memory is from David, who wrote to us, I am a nurse, and I'm so thankful for Monday Night Travel. Having it to look forward to every week during the pandemic helped me get through some of the darkest days of my career. This fall, I will be taking my first Rick Steves tour, The Best of London, and I can't wait. Thanks for helping to keep my travel dreams alive. And as David said, although MNT has its origins in the COVID era, we're so glad to be able to continue it. We just had our 100th show last week, of course, so we're just so happy to be able to continue each Monday with all of you.
I have one from Sarah. Sarah says that she can't choose just one, but I have to say that the best surprise is going into an episode whose topic I'm not especially interested in, like hiking Mount Blanc, for example, and becoming extremely excited about visiting that particular place someday. This has happened more than once, and I love this one because it has happened to me. I knew very little about Slovenia, for example, but after last year's show with Sasho, it is one of the top contenders of places that I might be going this year. So I very much resonate with that one.
Next up, Barbara's best MNT memory. So many good feelings of community came out of this pandemic lockdown here on Monday nights. But the best was when we all saw Ben back from his studies abroad and reading all the comments to him during his presentation. Rick probably does know, but it is a bonus to hear it from the customer. All of your MNT helpers, Ben, Gabe, Lisa, and Julianne, are truly great ambassadors for your Rick Steves brand. The team has made us feel like a part of your travel family, and the MNT experience is one of the nice things that happened in 2020. I have to say that I agree, Barbara. It is my pleasure to come here every Monday night and answer questions behind the scenes, because it really does feel like this wonderful merry band of travelers that we've helped foster, and we're very proud and happy to do that for you.
Well said, Lisa. From Cynthia, my favorite moment from Monday Night Travel was one episode sometime last winter when I asked a question about good places to see in Northern England as we were planning a driving trip through Scotland and Northern England in April. Gabe was doing the questions and answers that night, and he gave me some wonderful hints about the city of York. We made good use of his suggestions, and he even remembered my question on a later episode, and he asked how our trip went. That was a delight. Thank you, Gabe, for helping to make our trip special, as your knowledge and suggestions helped us to plan one of our best trips ever. Monday Night Travel has been the highlight of my Monday evenings. Well done, Gabe.
I'm always happy to enthuse about York, and I never forget to follow up and ask people about their trips. I've gone on about it many times that it's one of my all-time favorite places. So thank you very much, Cynthia. And I have one from Brenda about Lisa here. Brenda says, favorite MNT memory? It has to be running into Lisa in the courtyard of our Florence hotel last May. What a glorious coincidence. We never would have known her if not for MNT. We are sitting at home right now with our Aperol Spritz, dreaming of Florence again. I love this one because we love running into all of you, whether here at Rick Steves Europe headquarters or in Europe. Or I was running the Seattle Half Marathon and some very kind people cheered for me and said that they loved Monday Night Travel. So we love seeing all of you out and about in the world.
That is a favorite memory of mine too. I didn't realize how distinctive or loud I was when speaking until they said, we heard you from our balcony 3 stories up. Okay.
Let's go once more around.
Once more around. Robin Janet's favorite MNT memories in no particular order. Meeting the guides. Discovering Julianne's music. Hearing Ben's stories of Finland and Russia. Having an outlet to interact with people during the pandemic. Gabe's humor. Seeing the art. Hearing Lisa's tour stories. And it's also great to relax after a Monday at work.
Beautiful.
I love that. Thank you very much, Robin Janet.
Well, from Londa, who I think might be with us this evening, happy 100th. I've loved so much about MNT, but a highlight was the destination duel. It was fun to see the Fab Four duke it out between the 2 cities. Well, Londa, I have some positive news. We did decide to host another destination duel in 2 weeks. It's on our website, ricksteves.com. So join us for a battle between the Amalfi Coast and the Cinque Terre. That'll be a tough one.
We have just started our strategy sessions this week. So, and I would like to finish with one final Monday Night Travel memory from Bethany. Bethany says, I have to say the good nights, especially during the beginning and height of the pandemic. Those good nights to us and to each other were something so comforting, caring, and sweet. Even during the most stressful of times, those good nights sent me to sleep with a sense of calm, connection, and hope. So we would like to end tonight by saying good night to all of you. As we always do, I'm going to bring up our ending slide here. And I'm going to say good night, Cristina.
Good night.
Good night, Lisa.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Ben.
Good night, Gabe. Good night, everyone.
Good night, Bethany. Good night to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you next week when we hike through Britain and Ireland with Cassandra Overby.